So when the Insomnia Percussion Trio asked me to come to Taipei to play some repertoire for solo percussion, I decided to bring a couple of pieces which I think are really repertoire pieces which deserve to be played a lot. And the repertoire for very special and beautiful setup pieces for multi-percussion is big, but not extremely big, so I just made a pick of some of the pieces which I think are really very beautiful. One of the older pieces for percussion setup is by Nørgård. It's Waves. Nørgård is mostly known from his piece I Ching, and his older piece Waves is not so well known, and I think it's really wonderful. It's very simple, it's very transparent, it's based on easy principles, musical principles, but I like it a lot. So I will play the first section of this piece, Waves, the section for 4 congas. And one piece I bring is Lab Fly Dreams. It's a piece for percussion, solo percussion, electronics and film. It's a piece by a Greek composer who lives in the Netherlands, and any composer who lives in the Netherlands for some time is considered a Dutch composer. And so in a way Yannis Kyriakides is part of the Dutch composing tradition. He studied with Louis Andriessen, who is the godfather of many of the Dutch composers. And like Louis Andriessen, there is a very strong focus on rhythm, but also on color. In this piece is for a very small percussion setup and very beautiful electronics. And the percussion and the electronics really merge into one instrument in a way. And the piece is based on the thoughts of a fly. A fruit fly. A fruit fly is this very small fly which is kept in laboratories throughout the world just for experiments. And one of the experiments that scientists have done in the last years is research the sleep patterns of this little animal. And what they did actually is tap the animal on the head every time it wanted to fall asleep, because a fruit fly sleeps like human beings do. Every time it wanted to fall asleep, they tapped it on the head so it would stay awake. And then after a couple of days of tapping it on the head, they would let it fall asleep. And so this way they would research the sleeping patterns of the fruit fly. And of this strange thought of tapping a fly on the head, that was the inspiration for this piece, Lab Fly Dream. And the thought is, what does this fly dream about when he finally falls asleep after all this tapping on the head? So that's a piece by Yannis Kyriakides. Then I play a real traditional Temazcal, a piece for 2 maracas and electronics by Javier Alvarez. I play, together with Insomnia Percussion Trio, a piece by another Dutch composer who is not really a Dutch composer. He's from the United States. His name is Ron Ford. And also Ron Ford studied with Louis Andriessen and composed a piece for 3 players. And we have the permission of the composer to do it with 4 players. And it's a piece which is played entirely on metal junk. Not on musical instruments, but on anything metal which you can find in the kitchen or in a car garage or wherever, metal junk. The piece is called Shift. And then I play actually a completely new piece which is written for me by Jacq Palinckx, also a Dutch composer. And it's a piece which consists of a couple of very short movements. Each of the movements has a very specific musical theme, musical idea. And I won't tell too much about the specific ideas, but it's like a suite, a couple of short pieces which are played one after the other, each presenting a tiny musical idea which is turned into a miniature. It's a set of musical miniatures. So the piece is called Games. And one of the games is actually a game which is played with the audience, but I won't tell more about that. And then the final piece of the recital is by Kevin Volans, She Who Sleeps with a Small Blanket, which is also one of the traditional pieces for solo percussion. It's wonderful. It's a very long piece, a relatively long piece, for a couple of drums. It's very rhythmical, it's very colorful. It is, the title is based on on an African expression. She who sleeps with a small blanket means she who sleeps alone, a lady who sleeps alone. The composer doesn't really want to talk about the title, so it's hard to tell why this title was chosen for the piece. Anyway, it's a very beautiful, rather lyrical piece for a couple of drums and a very beautiful and quiet coda played on marimba. So that's the recital. A couple of Dutch pieces, a couple of pieces from elsewhere in the world, and probably 60 minutes of music which I like a lot.